Hello, Space Family. So excited for this interview that's coming your way as part of our Illuminate Conversations. Today at Space, we have Melanie Kaplan. Wow, what a powerhouse. She is a space luminary in Chinese medicine and somatic healing. She's also a licensed acupuncturist and herbalist and a massage and cranial sacral therapist, and a somatic experiencing practitioner. She wears so many hats. Melanie, welcome.
Thanks, Donna Jo. Nice to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited for this interview. We've been planning this one for a while, and now that we're really moving, now we're really in spring and, eyeballing summer right on the horizon. We're just so excited to have you with us today. We wanted to begin first by just welcoming you and thank you for taking the time to be with the community. And I thought it might be an interesting jumping off place since you do so many things and you have such a wide variety of, expertises and accreditations under your belt. I just wanted to open our conversation by asking, we hear so much with this term of wellness and the wellness industry and well-being. Those buzzwords are bantied around a lot. I wanted to ask just, what's your take? What does wellness and well-being, what does that mean to you?
Well, it can mean so many different things, Donna Jo. First of all, also thank you for having me. It's my great pleasure to be here. But the way that I look at this is that there's obviously this sense that full well-being should be about being your most optimal self, physically, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, and really being able to bring that self out into the world and have that self also be available to support you. And the kind of acupuncture that I practice really hits on all of these. It's a very integral kind of a practice where there's really no part left out. There is, it's not just about the shoulder pain that you have or the digestive pains that you have. It's really about getting to the root cause. And I think so often we're kind of in this pace of needing to or wanting to just get this thing over with that's going on with me to get on to the next thing without really doing some deeper healing around things. And so for me, wellness is really about getting that kind of deeper level of healing. And there's always some sort of really strong kind of spiritual component to that, about really being able to kind of tap into that authentic self, that piece of you that is, sheer positivity, that is your force to move forward for the true, the good, the beautiful, kind of those real selfless passions that then bring you to greater depth and greater wholeness, I think, ultimately in the end. So, and of course, there are the pieces about, what you put in your body really matters, and really bringing a certain level of consciousness to almost every interaction that you have, really realizing that potentially no interaction that you have with another being is insignificant. And to kind of bring that awareness is another piece to really working towards wholeness and integration.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I hate to ask the obvious question.
Yeah.
Are there daily practices that you put in place when you think about, with our sort of fast-paced life and, the amount of news and social media we all consume, even if we're not trying to, right?
Exactly.
Just because it's in our culture. Do you have, sort of guideposts that you have in your own life, or that you instruct with clients, or are there daily rituals or practices that you do that anchor you in this consciousness, or that you would suggest to someone else that might root them in that place?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel that movement of the body of some kind is a really key piece to this, whether it's an official workout or a yoga class, or even just walking. And the walking piece brings me to being in nature. I think really moving through nature as a human being reminds us that we are really a part of all of that is going on around us. that is not necessarily man-made, that we are actually part of this more wild world, if you will. And moving through nature can be a really powerful thing. So those are kind of the first two things. I've also taught meditation. So meditation practice for me is a really key piece, getting up in the morning and squeezing it in. I tell my clients, to start, it doesn't have to be something that is perfect. It doesn't have to be, I like to ritualize things, but it's not for everybody to do that. So for me, it's in the morning. It doesn't have to be for a half an hour. That's typically where I land, about 20 to 30 minutes in the morning. But even if it's just 5 minutes to start, it's just a centering place for you to begin your day. And even little rituals to get people started, like whenever they're opening a door handle, to just take a moment and pause and take a breath when they're coming in the door from work, or every time they go to get in their car, just sit there for a minute and take a breath before just racing it and turning it on. So kind of integrating these little moments of pause. And during those times, just kind of checking in with, what's going on? How am I feeling? How's my body? Okay, let me just sit here. And I think one of the biggest obstacles to meditation is this kind of view that we need to have a completely empty mind. And that is not the case. And so as humans, we're thinking beings. So the biggest tip there, I think, would be to think about, or actually not to even think about, but to begin to move into that seat of the witness where you aren't all involved in your thoughts and all like up in it, so to speak, but you're able to take a step back and really witness things. And then from a physical standpoint, besides eating healthy, also allowing yourself some indulgences here and there. But life needs to be also fun and joyous as well. But to also kind of begin to instill some areas of self-care, some time for yourself, whether that is just simply being outside, reading a book, getting a massage, getting another kind of treatment, acupuncture, energy work, whatever it is, yoga, really being able to do something for yourself that feels really nurturing, and giving yourself the time to do that. And when you decide to do it, really letting yourself fully be there to receive it.
Yeah, it just struck me as you were listing off these different, practices and things that can root us. Everything that you said, I kept coming back to the idea that like, it's all just the regulation of our nervous system as well.
Yes, it really, really is. It is. And that's a lot of the work in the somatic healing. And that is also a lot of the work that I do in my practice. Nervous system dysregulation is probably one of the number one things that I see, or it's accompanied with other issues. So being able to do that is a key piece. Meditation's a practice for that. Somatic experiencing can be really helpful to get more into what it is and how to really recognize and notice when you're dysregulated.
So if I can just jump in and ask you a question.
Yeah.
So in your experience as an acupuncturist, an herbalist, somatic experiencing practitioner, how does this dysregulation, I have two questions actually. One is how does this dysregulation show up in your body or in the bodies of your clients or the minds? How does it show up? And then how do you approach wellness in the face of that through your different practices, if you will?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it can show up in a myriad number of ways. It can show up as kind of like classical anxiety, ruminating thoughts. It can show up as sleep problems. It can show up as digestive disorders, since the vagus nerve, which is one of that nerve that kind of runs all through the body. And now with all of the gut being considered, an endocrine organ that is hormonal, creates all these neurotransmitters, it can show up as a lot of disruption in gut motility and digestion. It can show up in tense muscles, tight jaw, tense shoulders. It can show up in all of kind of the classical ways, and beginning to tease apart how much of this is physical, how much of this is from a past experience, trauma, capital T trauma, baby T trauma, whatever that looks like. And we've all had traumas. And since we're kind of wired towards the negative as humans, we sort of have that negativity bias. we kind of forget that our traumatized selves are really not nearly as compelling as our future selves. And so beginning to look at that piece of that we're in this right now and it seems like we can't get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really attached to the story and to what happened maybe. And all of that is really, really important. But there's also this other piece out there, which is that this future you has this amazing potential, luminosity, light, space. And so kind of to remember that. So
that is so
yes.
hopeful too. Like, and hearing you say that as human beings, we're kind of wired for the negativity. So it's not just me being like a grouch, negative, like it's a way that it's what we're wired for. And then it shows up. And like, when you said like tense jaw muscles, I'm like, I can hear you talking about me. I'm right here, you don't,
you're in the room, so to speak. Yeah.
Right. Wow. That's amazing. So then how do you approach that through your practices when you have clients, or when you yourself or anyone that you know and love has this dysregulation showing up? How do you manage that, or what is your approach, in the face of this dysregulation of our minds and bodies?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of different ways we can start by, there's obviously, I'm an acupuncturist, so needling is a big piece of that. I've done a lot of extensive work with a few different teachers from different sort of lineages of acupuncture, Japanese style, and a more kind of psychologically integral psychology based practice. And so needling can be really helpful. There's some great points kind of near the vagus nerve that I've been playing with that have been really interesting, because almost always people take this big deep breath right after I put them in, which is sort of a sign of things kind of coming together and integrating. And so there's definitely acupuncture treatments for that. There's also the somatic experiencing piece, which can entail, really talking about things. Not necessarily, it's different than cognitive therapy in the fact that we're not always going straight for the story. Story is important, but it's really about kind of slowing it down and really moving your awareness down into your body so that you can be like, wow, I didn't realize that whenever this happens, my shoulders start to tense. It's like a somatic memory from something that has happened. And so beginning to recognize it is the beginning of you being able to start to work with it and undo it and reframe it in a different way. And there's also touch modalities. There's the cranial sacral, but somatic work also has, a lot of different holds to be able to begin to start to allow people to feel themselves really settled in their nervous system. And so what you can feel, you can then begin to repeat yourself. And I also think that there's sort of some questions that I think are helpful for people to consider on a really deep level, whether it's in meditation, but it kind of helps to open up that perspective in a big way. And this was something that I've worked with one of my teachers on, and they're just so beautiful and can hit on so many different levels. But the questions are really, who am I? Why am I here? And how shall I live? And I really think it's that last question that can be really powerful. All of them are, but when you sort of answer the first two and you move into that place of how do I live?
Please repeat those, because that's so good.
Yeah. So the first question is, who am I? And again, that question is sort of, we kind of go to like, for me, I'm like, I'm Melanie, I'm a mom, I'm an acupuncturist, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter. But then once you get past all of those are really like labels. So really the question becomes like, who am I? Like, am I space? Am I a piece of this nature? Am I love, really? Am I light? Like, who am I? And there's a real vastness that can really arise there. And then the second question is, why am I here? So again, that kind of connects to purpose. And this is an interesting thing to begin to look at in terms of really heart and your heart level. Why am I here? I'm here, maybe it is to be a mother to my children, to be a supportive friend, to be a healer. But I also think it becomes a thing of to also be in community. I strongly believe that healing really happens at its best in community with other people. So that is a wide ranging thing. And then the last question is, how do I live? How do I move through this life? What choices am I going to make? Am I going to make the choice to maybe kind of remain where I am, which is a perfectly fine choice? Am I going to maybe make a choice to maybe push a leading edge a little bit in this one area? How am I going to live? What is that going to look like? How are my interactions going to go? How am I going to be in space? Maybe even where am I going to live? So I think that those are like the bigger questions that, I think are really important. And when you start to really drill down on those, it can be a little overwhelming, but I think ultimately you land in a place of deeper understanding and peace.
That's absolutely, I mean, wow, Melanie, that I feel like you've just given us like a most amazing smorgasbord of like knowledge and a meal of like nourishing ideas here. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I
of
want to
course.
ask, for those in the space community that this may be their first introduction to you, how can people stay in touch? How can they learn more about what you do or about the subjects you brought up? What's the best way to, to stay connected with you and learn more about what you're doing and
Yeah.
type of thing?
Yeah, that'd be great. So admittedly, I have an Instagram account that I never check because I feel like it takes me too out of the moment. So I will give you my cell number, I'll give you my website, and I'll give you my email. So my phone number, which is textable, you can call, it's 310-633-4316. And my email is info@mlkacupuncture.com. And my website is MLK Acupuncture. So Melanie Kaplan, and I am in Brentwood, Los Angeles area on the west side. And yeah, you can put any of those searchable topics in and you'll be able to track me down.
Wonderful. Well, Melanie, I want to just thank you so much for the time today. It's just been wonderful talking with you, and thank you so much for, just that daily list of ways to stay connected and to get centered and to be in our awareness. And those 3 questions, wow, that's going to give me, I know I'm going to do some journaling around those.
Yeah, great.
Loved when you said like that vastness that opens up when we recognize we are not our labels. And
Mm-hmm.
as someone who, has been an actress since I was very young, staying stuck in the story and being stuck in the details of a character or a personality or what have you I feel like it's kind of second nature for me. So it's just very affirming to hear that there is a way out of the wilderness through these practices and these modalities that can really bring us back to present moment, bring us back to self, and really root us in our authentic beingness, if you will.
Yes. Yeah. Beautifully said. And yes, it's been my great pleasure to be here. And so good to see you, Donna Jo.
Well, thank you so much for your time. So Space Family, I hope you enjoyed this Illuminate Conversations with Mel Kaplan, and we look forward to being back with you again next month. So enjoy and be well.